I am currently a freshman at Eastern Michigan University, which is only about an hour or less away from Detroit. My roommate and I live in a freshman dorm. I'm not sure how old it is in comparison to the others, but it's definitely not a new building, and I never really thought anything of it. I moved in first and lived by myself for at least a week back in August, and nothing unusual happened. I have never heard any strange noises or discovered cold spots, nor did I feel uncomfortable. In fact, I absolutely loved living there. A month or so after school started, my puppy died. My parents took me home so I could say goodbye before we took her body into the vet. I took her collar with me to college and collapsed it around my bed. And honestly, I was so upset that I had a hard time making it into my classes and spent most of my day sleeping. Eventually, I wasn't so emotional, but that's when things started to change. It all started on a cold November morning. I'd slept in until about 11 a.m. to check my email. I closed out of everything and locked the door. My roommate was currently at classes and she wouldn't have returned until about 1 p.m. I set my sweatpants on top of my laptop, but took the rest of my clothes with me. There isn't a fan in our bathroom, and the curtain doesn't keep water out very well. However, when I came back into my room, I noticed that my pants weren't there, where I had put them. They had been folded neatly and placed underneath my desk. I found this to be odd, but again, I didn't think anything of it. The door had been locked, no one had come in. We didn't have suite mates. I simply assumed that maybe they had fallen off and coincidentally landed under my desk, folded neatly. But what was more strange was that Google had been up, and someone had searched SI4U. I was slightly creeped out at this point, but the results were in different languages, and I didn't see anything particularly eerie about them. When my roommate had returned, I told her what had happened, and she searched SI4U as well. She got the same results back. We decided that maybe my sweatpants had just fallen off, but sweatpants can't double-click the icon for Firefox, go to Google, and then search SI4U before promptly jumping off the desk to the floor. Shortly after this, I lost internet connection. This is typical, but that particular page worked. We were creeped out by this, so I closed it. Nothing happened for a while. Later on that month, just before Thanksgiving break, I was once again alone in the room. My roommate had already left to go home earlier that day, and my dad wasn't going to pick me up until the next morning. I was trying to finish up some homework so that I wouldn't have to worry about it over break, when suddenly I started to hear music. The music sounded as if it was coming from a radio, but it was soft, and at first I couldn't tell if it was coming from my room or someone else's. Then it became loud. It was loud, and it was coming from my roommate's radio alarm clock. Who knew by Pink? I went over to her dresser to turn off her alarm clock, but the switch was already off. My next idea was to unplug it, but one soft tug and the plug was in my hand. My roommate had unplugged it before she left. I thought that maybe there was something wrong with the switch, so I turned it on in hopes that maybe it would shut off, but instead, the music became so loud it was stinging my ears. I took that battery out and it stopped. The next day, I told my roommate not to be surprised if she finds that the battery to her alarm clock is lying on her dresser. I told her that it went off when I was studying, and that was the only thing that would make it stop. I assumed that something might have been fired wrong or that there was a mishap, but then she said this: "That's strange. The battery isn't strong enough to power the radio, just the alarm. I thought the radio was broken because it wouldn't turn on unless I had the entire thing plugged into the wall."